the absolute dishonesty about what this initiative would do, and I'm just going to say it, the sob stories. Like when you want to spin a tale, right? When you want to deceive voters, the surest way to do that is to get at their heart, to make them feel bad, right? This segment is brought to you by Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. I'm down 37 pounds on the program, and I lost most of that in just 2 months. Do what I did and what so many other undivided viewers have done. Schedule your free 15-minute consultation today at eastsideweightlossclinic.com. I could genuinely, I couldn't afford to, but in theory, I could hire a team of 10 fact checkers for the campaign, and they would have enough to do full time from now until November. Truly. Because there are so many dishonest political ads coming out, from campaign ads to the ads against the initiatives that are on the ballot. There are so many of them coming out so rapidly. Nicole and I, we cannot keep up with the falsehoods. It would be a full-time freaking job to fact check them all. And unfortunately, it falls on us because my former colleagues in the media, either they don't have enough people, they don't care enough, or they believe that the ads are true, or they don't know enough about Washington politics and the history of it to tell you whether the ads are true or not. All of those things individually are concerning enough. So it falls on us here at unDivided and our 2-person team of aggressive fact checkers. So I saw this ad yesterday. Nicole, let's play the ad first before we go into what the Seattle Times coverage of it looked like. So there is an initiative on the ballot in November that will make the state's long-term care program optional. They call it WACARES, and you already have it coming out of your paycheck, whether you wanted it or not, and you are going to pay into the WACARES program your entire working life to get a measly benefit out of it, maybe at some point if you need it when you retire. So this program was deeply unpopular and deeply flawed when it started. They've tried to make improvements to it so people don't repeal it, because home health care workers in their union are trying really hard to keep it because it's going to line their pockets for decades and decades to come. But the absolute dishonesty about what this initiative would do, and I'm just going to say it, the sob stories. Like when you want to spin a tale, right? When you want to deceive voters, the surest way to do that is to get at their heart, to make them feel bad, right? To have them prioritize emotion ahead of rational thought. And this ad does exactly that. Watch.
I was 44 years old with a good job in the tech industry when my mom suffered a stroke at 62, and everything changed. I had to leave my job to care for her. After just a year and a half, we had gone through a lot of our savings, and pretty soon there was nothing left. So I took 5 part-time jobs. We had a lot of garage sales, and I even had to sell my own plasma. I'm voting no on Initiative 2124 because I don't want one more woman in Washington to go through what I've gone through. Washington created its long-term care insurance program to help provide care to nearly 4 million working Washingtonians, from teachers and nurses to firefighters, and everyone in between. I-2124 would gut that program, which is why we must vote no. Because my story, it may sound unthinkable, but it's not uncommon. More than 800,000 Washingtonians are currently working as unpaid family caregivers, and most of those are women, many of whom are forced to choose between a promising career and their promises to loved ones. Washington's long-term care insurance program can help, but only if we come together to protect it. Take it from me, we cannot afford I-2124, which would make an already costly, heartbreaking journey even harder for millions of Washingtonians.
Holy smokes. I don't know how the people who came up with that even live with themselves by trotting that woman out, who I'm sure does it willingly, and making her a poster child based on lies. So her name's Christina. I feel very bad for her. I mean, a lot of Washingtonians do find themselves in a position where they have an elderly loved one who they have to take care of, and that's a very difficult thing. And so you can see how that really tugs at your heartstrings. But the whole premise of it is a lie, is a complete falsehood. And why is that? Well, the initiative doesn't repeal the long-term care program. The initiative makes the long-term care program optional. And that means that you have a choice about whether you pay into it and benefit from it down the road. And that's very fair. But of course, the concern is that so many Washingtons will not want it because the benefit that you get from it is negligible, that when they're not paying into the program, that it will not be financially solvent. And if you have a program that's not financially solvent, that means it's either not a necessary or it's not a good program. So someone like Christina, she has every right in the world, even if the initiative passes, to choose to pay into the long-term care program so that she will qualify, or her mother can pay into it so she will qualify for benefits later on. And of course, her situation wouldn't have been avoided because you have to pay into it for an extended period of time before you can even qualify for the benefits of it. And that's if there are some people who move out of state who won't be able to take their benefits with them. There's a ton of issues with the long-term care program, which is why it's unpopular. And not to mention, if you want long-term care insurance, you can always get it privately. I mean, you can't now because when WellCare started, you had a small window to opt out of it, and you had to prove you got private long-term care insurance. And now, if you're already locked in, you have to pay. It doesn't matter if you want private insurance. You can't opt out anymore. So you'd have to get private insurance that's actually worth something, but then you'd still be paying into every single paycheck the long-term program that you didn't even want and you're never going to use. And I'd also say something else. Again, they're using a woman with what I believe, I have no reason not to believe her story and having to care for her elderly loved one. But this program is not going to, in any meaningful way, help her financially do that for an extended period of time. It'll help her for a couple months. You will absolutely burn through. I think the total benefit you could get is just over $30,000. That's the total benefit after you've paid in for the necessary period of time. Well, for anyone who's had to care for an elderly loved one and pay for long-term care, $30,000 is nothing. It is not going to last you very long. And so it's just disingenuous to say that you won't still find yourself in a difficult situation because you get this measly payout after paying in for decades to the program. So everything about that ad is completely disingenuous, including the fact that she says that voting to make the long-term care program optional will have some sort of disproportionate impact on women. Because it can be argued from the opposite side that it also disproportionately and negatively impacts women if we keep it intact. Because one of the rules of the long-term care program is that if you leave the job market for a couple years, then you have to start all over again in being vested into the program. Well, who leaves the job market just randomly for a couple years at a time? Who does that? Women who have children are more likely to do that than men. So you're now saying you could be a woman, work for years and years, you don't quite hit the vestment period, you have a kid, you decide to take a little break from the job market, and then you have to get back in and start being vested all over again. So that disproportionately impacts women as well, but they won't tell you that. So they spun this tale based on emotion, but your responsibility, I think, as a voter is to vote not based on emotion, but based on facts and based on reason. And making the long-term care program optional, now this isn't going to be on your ballot Tuesday, it's going to be on the November ballot, but making it optional should be non-controversial, right? If it's such a good program, Washingtonians will opt into it. They'll decide to pay into it so that they can benefit from it later on. Unless all of this is a total scam to help the home health care worker union, one of the most powerful unions in the state, ensure that their members are able to get their pockets lined for the next 10 generations. I think that last one sounds like the most likely. Meanwhile, the Seattle Times is trying to help the no on the initiative side of things. This is an actual headline in the Seattle Times. I can't with these people. Are you struggling with the cost of long-term care? Share your stories. Literally, the Seattle Times putting out an all call for sob stories about what would happen if you make the long-term care program optional. That's genuine. This is the Seattle Times doing opposition research for the no on the initiative side of things. Unless I see a headline from the Times saying, Are you struggling to get by financially because of the money because of all the taxes that you're paying, like the long-term care tax? Share your stories with us. Hey, then that'd be a little different, right? They want to tell both sides of it. The Seattle Times literally doing an all call to do opposition research. That's shameful stuff. So anyway, yeah, team of fact checkers, we could hire 10 of them around the clock. And they'd have endless work to do between now and November because the rest of the media is absolutely failing at very obvious falsehoods in ads and not only refuses to call them out, is helping prop up those falsehoods, like the Seattle Times, by trying to do all the research, find them stories, sad sob stories about long-term care that you don't think they're going to go feed to the no on initiative side of things. Or that the no on initiative side isn't going to say, oh, the Seattle Times just had this woman and she gave this sob story about long-term care. Let's find her and put her in a political ad. Good for you, Seattle Times. Just crazy stuff.